Out of respect of your listening experience, and in case you have small children listening, there will be a few more explicit words through this conversation than usual. So listeners' discretion is advised. Thank you.
Our modern Western culture places little to no value on the power of our nightly dreams to inspire, shift, and reorganize our lives. This podcast demands a deep reconsideration of the role dreams play on our path to a more vital and meaningful life. The following is living proof of the life-affirming power of dreams to affect a change and redirect the trajectory of our inner and outer lives. These are the dreams that shape us. The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. He's the green guy with the yellow teeth and a beak for a nose who steals all the Christmas presents from the townspeople of Whoville. He's a mean one, as the song says, and just imagine encountering a character like that in your dreams. My co-host Stephen Ernenwine encountered him, and oh, are those dreams off the hook. Encounter is the right word, because in the character of the Grinch, Steve faces off against something in himself that, like the proverbial troll, would not allow him to pass over the bridge into adulthood until reckoned with. You always want to ask with a dream character, what do I see about myself in it? It's hard to do when the character is dark and reviled. See yourself in the Grinch Who Stole Christmas? Steve is about to show you how, and in the process he owns up to his role in bringing the Grinch to life in himself. This is a hard and emotional story to tell. To do justice to the dreams and explain what they mean to him, Steve must reveal the parts of himself that are like the Grinch. The dreams occurred during the greatest test of his life, as something inside him called him to initiation and forced him to make the hardest choices. It was an all-or-nothing time for him. Steve's dreams promised him that keeping on the path would initiate a new way of being for him, but as the months passed, the pressure built to make him give up. What you are about to hear is a story about how your dreams draw from your memories and experiences and create interactive stories that test you to your core. It's a story about how a myth comes alive in Steve's dreams and confronts him with the question, would he stop being the victim? Would he, as the song says, do everything for love, beginning with loving himself fully? You're about to find out. I'm your co-host, J.M. DeBoard. Welcome to our Christmas show. And now, the interview. So, Steve, hello, and why don't you start off telling us about the time of your life that you were in when these dreams started?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, man, it's good to be back here with you.
It is.
Yeah, this is like the biggest story of my life. This is the big one. This is the one that all my medicine really is locked up within. And if any of you have been listening all along, you know that I've mentioned several times that I had this big death experience that happened about 4, I guess going on 5 years now, back in 2017. Just a super intense period of time for me. It was during the middle of my Saturn return, and I think to have you kind of have an understanding of where the Grinch ties into all this, I'll give you just like the backstory real quick on how this mythic story has shown up several different times throughout my life and really came alive in just really kind of fascinating ways. So my father tells the story that when I was like 3 or 4, I was in love with that book when I was a kid, and it was like my favorite book. And eventually I memorized all the words to it. And one day I stopped him from reading it and told him I was going to read it to him. And so I knew exactly when to turn the page and all that. And he like freaked out, thought he had like a child prodigy on his hands, and tried to grab a couple other books and put them in front of me, and I had no idea how to read them. And he went, "Oh." So this story and the original cartoon were like a staple in my family all grown up because I loved it so much. I don't know how much they really love it, but they at least humor me, and they know how much the story means to me, that it's kind of like a big story for our family.
It was Dr. Seuss, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Seuss wrote a book, and it would had the cool illustrations and everything in it, and then it was made into the Christmas special, like a animated cartoon, and it became a staple. Every year, it would come
Yeah, it's
on the
classic.
TV. But you were checking this thing out before then, and you knew it as a book. So that's really cool. And so obviously the story resonated with you already at, age 3 or 4. You were already resonating with the story.
Yeah, it just really, there's just something about it that has always just felt so just so special to me for some reason. And it wasn't until like way later, I guess, like probably, I don't know, when I was like 26, 27 maybe, I kind of had this like really cool experience where I was wearing a shirt that had the Grinch on it at work one day, and this woman walks up to me and she says, "Oh, you like the Grinch?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love the Grinch." And she looked at me like, "Why?" And just like out of my mouth just flew, "Oh, well, it's a great story of no matter how awful a human being is, like they can always have a big change of heart." And it came out so fluid, and I was like, "Wow, is that why I've loved this story all along?" Like that's totally like my kind of personality. Like I'm always trying to like pry into people who are all like guarded uh and that kind of thing, that I always want, to open people up and lighten them up. And I just have that optimistic streak in me that nobody's beyond repair. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And like a year or two later after that, I was at a drum circle, and the shamanic practitioner was leading us into this shamanic journey. And he goes, "I want you all to think about a cartoon character that you really identified with as a kid. And because it's a cartoon, it's instantly mythic. And if you had a real strong affinity with it, it probably holds some kind of mythic, symbolic power for you." And I had nothing in my mind, and I laid my head back down. And as soon as like I had just threw a thought out there of who that would be, like the Grinch just popped right in my mind. And I'm like, no, of course. Why would I not have thought that that would be who I would pick? And so I'm going into this visualization with this idea of the change of heart already. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if there'll be anything more to it than that. And so the shamanic journey starts with me climbing up the side of Mount Crumpet. And I get up to his little cave lair, and he's standing there, and he starts kind of poking and prodding at me. And he says, "Why do you think you like me so much?" And I go, "It's probably that." And I regurgitated what I just told you. And he goes, "Well, think about it. When did the live action movie come out?" And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, shoot, that was like around 2000 or 2001. And I'm like, that was like right before I went into like this big depression during my teenage years. And he goes, "Yeah, I came back into your life to initiate that period where you were going to know exactly how I felt."
Oh, yeah.
And
And Jim Carrey plays, I forgot, there was a movie, a
yeah,
Hollywood movie with Jim Carrey as the
yep.
Grinch. Okay. And really, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was like, holy cow, that like hit me so hard. And I was like, wow, because I mean, I wasn't like a sad, depressed kid. I was like, I mean, I was. there was definitely a lot of grief involved in that, but I was angry. I was like angry at the world, and I was so mad that like I had been through so much pain moving as a kid and got to the place where I was at in high school, and everybody was so harsh to me. And so it was like everything snowballed completely into a big mess for me. And I was just so mad, so pissed off at the world. I was just like big middle finger up to everybody. And I was I was totally the Grinch, dude. And so in the visualization, he kind of continues and he's like, you had to become me. So you know my anger, you know my rage, you know the depths of, you know, my grief and all of that. So that when you had your big change of heart, you would know how to kind of offer other people that same grace that could lead them to their change of heart. And I was like, wow. And he kind of scoffs at me and he goes, you're from Whoville. You're one of those endlessly optimistic little jerks that like piss me off. And then he kind of softens and he's like, but that's what we need you to be. That's what the world needs you to be. And I was just like, oh my God, what just happened? And I kind of came out of that like, I am so blown away. Like, I cannot believe that this story really is that intertwined with me and my journey as a person in life. And so now, a few years after that, here we are at this big story. And the way that the Grinch myth is totally intertwined into this story I'm about to tell you is really, really wild. And there's many dreams where the Grinch makes a really interesting appearance. So yeah, I'd been doing shadow work for about 2.5 years, up to where this journey really takes flight. Really hard shadow work. Felt like I was just being abused. I felt like when my shadow journey really began, like this wasn't just like shadow work. It was like a full plunge into the underworld. And I felt like I had no boundary. There was no like energetic boundary. Any slight or stab was totally taking. I could feel it in my body. I could feel it in my field completely. And it was like showing me the map of where all of these triggers and all of these wounds that I carry are, like somatically within my body. And kind of like where the body was holding all of it. And it was rough, dude. It was brutal. It felt like I was just constantly being like beaten up psychically and emotionally. So it was rough. It was a really hard work. And come February of 2015, and I had this amazing lucid dream. It was by far the most powerful lucid dream I've ever had. So this dream right here is the initiatory dream. This is the big one. This is something pretty heavy. This dream essentially goes that I'm in a haunted mansion. I'm with a couple of my girl cousins, and there's all kinds of zombie characters just all over this place, and we have superpowers, and we're just decimating them. And we're like flying around and we're like shooting these like fireballs out of our fists and stuff like that. Like we're having a good old time. And we fly out of the building when we feel like we've done a sufficient job, and we get up to the roof and we're all chatting about it. And it's winter out and there's just this magic in the air. It feels like Christmas. And I start to look around because I'm like, oh my God, this feels so beautiful. And I'm like, where am I? And that's when the moment I become lucid, I'm like, oh my God, I'm dreaming. Yes. And I realized what we had just been doing. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. We got to go back in there. We got to do some real healing. We can't just be decimating the shadow. We got to go back in there. We got to figure this out. And so we fly down. I'm looking in the windows of the mansion, and it's not haunted at all anymore. It's like this fancy wine and cheese party's going on. And I walk through the wall, and there's this guy who's playing this instrument, just first thing right there. It's an instrument that I just come across in waking life. It's called an Egyptian sistrum. And it's like this jangly instrument that they used to use in ancient Egypt to induce trance-like states. And they used it in ceremony and ritual and stuff like that. And I just came across this online like a couple days before that, and there it was. And I'm like, holy cow, there it is. And I kind of go, hey, man, can I play that for a second? And he cocks his head back and he laughs and he's like, yeah, if you want to play this instrument, you got to go talk to that guy. And he points across the room, and there's this solitary man sitting at a table. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And I humor him because I've learned better throughout my lucid dreams to follow the nudges of the lucid dream and not let my dream ego get the best of me in those moments. Instead of saying, this is my dream, give me that damn instrument. I started to realize after many failed attempts that when the dream points you in a direction, you follow it, because it's going to take you somewhere way cooler than something stupid like wanting to play an instrument. So I go over to the table, and I don't really care about the instrument anymore. I'm just more curious now where the dream is trying to point me. And I get over there, and before I even get there, he looks up at me and he flashes me this kind of knowing smile, and like he's been waiting for me. Yeah, of course, right?
And here we have the sound of the instrument in the background. Oh yeah, they're gonna buzz your house right now. Wow.
Yeah, so I go up to the table, the guy's sitting there, and so I continue to play along, and I say, hey man, I was told that if I wanted to play that instrument, I gotta come talk to you. And he laughs in a way that says that he's willing to play this game with me for a minute. And he says, yeah, if you want to play that instrument, you got to tell me something you've been working on. And my jaw drops, and I get all giddy inside, like, oh man, this is already going deep, and I'm not even trying to make it go deep. And so, like, without even really thinking, I just like rattled off, I've been working on power issues and empowerment issues. And he seemed real satisfied with that. And he goes, okay, well, let's look at the situation then. And all of a sudden, he just materializes these two little pegs. He's got a hemp string that he tied into a circle. He's got like a quill pen, and he hands me the quill pen, puts the string around the two pegs. Well, I guess he smashes the two pegs into the table, like with a force that makes me jump back and be like, whoa, dude, you got to warn me before you get all crazy. And yeah, so he tells me to take the string that's tied into a circle, put it around the two pegs, and then take the quill pen, pull the string taut against those pegs, and then try to draw the most perfect circle that I could. And I'm sitting there going, what is happening? I've never had a lucid dream do this before. Like, what are we even doing here? But I'm curious. And so I keep going along with it. And I draw what I believe to be the most perfect circle that anybody has ever drawn in their entire lives. It feels so perfect. Like, while I'm doing it, I'm going, oh my God, this feels so perfect. And I'm like patting myself on the back, and we stand back and we look at it, and it literally looks like a hot dog. Like, it's it's the most oblong circle anyone has ever drawn. And I'm going, no. I was just blown away, like, holy cow. And so from there, he starts walking around the table, and he's hemming and hawing, and he's looking at it from every single angle. And I start to realize this is a divination. Like, he's based on the circle and him looking at it from all these different angles, he's like deriving something from this. Like, this is a form of divination. And now I'm like really curious, because I'm like, I've never had a lucid dream close to this cool. Like, holy shit. And so then eventually he's done looking at it, and he takes a razor blade that all of a sudden he has, and he goes, sorry, man. Unfortunately, it looks like you're going to have to go through the heart of it all. And I just was like, wow, yeah, sounds like the story of my life. And he takes the razor blade and he zips it right through the center of the two pegs, and he slices the circle right in half. And yeah, then I think that's it. I think that's all he's going to say. Like, I've been doing shadow work for 2.5 years. At that point, I assume that, hey, I just keep going. I just keep doing it, and maybe eventually I'll reach the heart of it. I think that's going to be it, and I'm satisfied with that in some ways. And just as I think we're about to be done here, he kind of squares up to me one final time, and he says to me, "If you want to come back into your power," and I just freeze, and I'm like, "Wait, we're not done? Like, what are you even going to say after that?" Like, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is a dream. He's not going to tell me what I'm supposed to do. Like, he's going to say something that's so obnoxiously cryptic and like juicy and symbolic. And I'm going to have to like really think about this. And there's going to be like, and I'm like kind of like going, please, please be cryptic. Please, please, please. And he definitely didn't disappoint. He says to me, if you want to come back into your power, you have to both in your waking life and in your dreaming life kill something and create something beautiful in its place. And I was like, wow, okay.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like chewing on that. And the word kill in that moment felt so heavy. It carried so much weight that I was like, it threw me. I'm sitting there scrambling, like, what do you mean I have to kill something? Like, what? No, what? You gotta explain more. And the dream just totally rips apart. And I wake up like, whoa, like, never ever. I mean, I'd been lucid dreaming for 10 years up to that point. Never ever had, I've asked dream characters questions before, but I never ever had a dream character give me any remotely close kind of directive of, how to do anything in life. That directive carried so much weight that like it was like a good 2 or 3 days before like the hush of that and like the gravity of the fact that I was given that. Because I mean, you get delivered something like that, and it's kind of like one of those moments in your life where it's like, do I really have a choice? Like if I'm sincere in my desire to get my power back, like whatever that even really means, uh, here it is. This is the law of my soul. Like, you either do it or you don't. And if you don't, I mean, I don't know. Who doesn't want to be in their power, right? I mean, if I had the choice, right? So, whew, man, that was like that. I mean, that still weighs heavy. I mean, I feel heavy right now just even speaking that out loud. I mean, it still carries so much weight for me that, like, oh my God, dude. And so, you know, it was like a few days after that, I realized that one of the big things in my waking life that had to be killed was the job that I had at the time, because it was a huge power suck for me. It just felt really inauthentic. And at the time, like my sense of worth was all wrapped up in feeling like I needed to be, fulfilling my calling in life. Otherwise, I wasn't. I wasn't really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so the job that I had at the time wasn't sexy at all. And anytime somebody asked me, what do you do? It was like the worst question anybody could ask me. It just prickled me so deeply, thinking that here I have all these gifts and all this beauty that I want to share with the world. And here I am working in like a cafeteria at a corporate office building.
Mm.
So I was trying to find a job over the next 8 months in something that was more appropriate or more in alignment with what I felt like I had to offer the world. and I couldn't find nothing, and I was getting really discouraged, and it just felt like maybe this is all happening right now because the universe is ready to support me in a way that it hasn't yet. And maybe if I jump off the cliff and I, dive into a few of the creative projects that I've been doing, that maybe something will finally click. And if I have the time to really devote to it, maybe I can actually, you know, grow some wings and learn to fly. And it was just looking more and more like there wasn't really a good option for me. And so I started to tickle the idea of maybe just up and quitting my job and just seeing what happened. And I I finally decided to do it and pair it with a trip that I was making to San Antonio that summer. So that dream was in February, and in September I was going to be going down to Texas for a cousin's wedding, and I was born in San Antonio, and I had never been back since I was like 13 months. So my whole life I lived with this feeling of not knowing where I came from. And as you'll see within this story, like, the idea of belonging is such a part of my journey. It's such a part of my story, and it's such a part of the Grinch story. Like, he's looking for belonging. Like, he's bitter and angry up there because he's an outcast, and his big transformation, welcomes him back into Whoville. It welcomes him back into the heart, and it's all such a big part. So me going back to San Antonio at this point, it felt like a big rebirth to me. So I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to jump off the cliff. This is going to be a big death moment and a rebirth moment for me. And we're going to go from there. And it was crazy. So right before I quit my job, I had one of the first like true Grinch dreams of this whole story. And so I was being chased through a park by these two thug-like characters, and they're trying to get me, and they're gaining on me. And one of the main thug characters yells this truly vile statement at me as he's chasing me. And he says to me, "I'm going to take everything away from you and make you feel what it feels like to have nothing." And I woke up and was just like, what was that? And it wasn't, I mean, I couldn't know how prophetic that was at the time. And I didn't even realize until later on, when I started realizing how much the Grinch myth was really playing into this whole initiatory experience for me, that was the voice of the Grinch. That's exactly what he does to Whoville. He takes everything away from them for them to know what it feels like to have nothing, and to see if they can still sing that song of praise at the end.
Yeah, that's the big turning point of the story, because they're kind of like Job in the Bible. Everything's taken away, and what are they left with? Do they have any of that Christmas spirit left? And isn't it that they show him that the gifts and the material things that he took from them, that they didn't matter?
Yeah.
That they look and they say, "Well, we've still got each other," and and that's what it makes him realize, that there was more to the Christmas spirit, to the love. He got a chance to see that these people genuinely loved each other, and
Yeah.
isn't that the point of his transformation?
Yeah. And it's a beautiful image of like true belonging. And if you remove the whole Christmas theme away from the Grinch story and having his awareness be the true meaning of Christmas, and have it and look at it as like a true meaning of belonging, uh, it's a powerful little story. And yeah, so that was like so we'll have to remember this little phrase, this little Grinch phrase, and how it plays out here pretty quickly, because here I am naively thinking that this is all happening because the great universe wants to support me, uh, and not really taking into account what an initiation really is, or really truly understanding the gravity of how deep a death has to happen for you to truly be transformed in the way that a true initiation happens.
Yeah.
And so here I am. I jump off the cliff, and I have just a little bit of savings to go off them, a few grand, maybe 4 or 5. And I just start walking down that path. And not far after the directive dream, I realized that all the shadow work that I've been doing, that I had kind of viewed as poor me kind of mentality, was really the victim. And I hadn't actually realized that poor me is the victim. I don't know how I missed that all those years, but I guess I never really looked at myself as a victim. I'm not the kind of person that unloads all of his shit on people. And so I never really thought that I played the victim, but man, there's a very deep victim inside of me. And uh, it's very much on the internal level. I always put on this nice face, but inside I'm dying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes out in your song about the victim, which maybe
Yeah.
that's going to have to be brought out for the listeners, because you express, you give him the chance to have the voice
Yeah.
to talk to you, and he tells you, you're going to deny me the love that you give to everyone else. And
Hmm.
there's, you're looking outward, but brother, you need to look inward, because there's something inside of you that is just,
Yeah.
it's hurt. I'm bleeding out here, and you're over there whistling Dixie. Oh, the universe is going to support me. Yeah. And I understand where that comes from, because I've been in that space too. You think you deserve it.
Hmm.
There's something inside of you that thinks, oh, well, I've had a hard life to this point, so the universe is going to support me because I deserve it.
Hmm.
And it's just a sign that you got to have more taken from you. Even if you have, very little left, you're going to have the last of it taken from you, and you're going to be sitting there alone and in the dark and just bereft of everything, stripped down and, naked and totally exposed. And then that's when the true work can begin. That's when spirit says, okay, I got you where I want you. Now we can build up from there, but that last little bit of ego needs to, it needs to see the light of day. It needs to have that light shined in there.
Oh yeah.
And that really seems to be what the victim, that archetype, seems to be. It's a shadow side of the ego. And anytime that you say to yourself, well, I deserve better and the universe is going to give it to me, you're setting yourself up to have more taken from you. But that's exactly where it needs you to be. So it sounds like you're setting us up here to, I mean, you are, your savings is dwindling. You've been to San Antonio. All right, man. Well, what happened next?
Yeah. So to make the correlation here, in case you haven't, not you personally, but listeners, if you haven't figured this out yet, that the Grinch is the archetypal victim. Like, he's angry and bitter and mad, and thinks that everyone down in Whoville is the source of all of his problems, right? And so through the course of like the 10 years, leading up to that year that I'd been doing lucid dreaming, I had confronted nightmarish characters and had had some really powerful like healing experiences with that. And when my shadow journey began, like my lucid dreaming like turned off, like it just disappeared, and I couldn't do it for quite a long time. And if I did have a lucid dream, it like abruptly just kind of fell apart. And I think it was because when my shadow journey is started, I was like, "Oh, sweet, yeah, I can just go into my lucid dreams, and we'll just make good work of this." And so I think my psyche just shut it down and was like, "No, bro, you got to do the hard work. We can't just bypass the true work, because that's where all the gold is going to be. That's where you're going to get the most out of it, instead of just trying to hug it away in a lucid dream."
Yeah, and something's got to die.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for
that
sure.
kind of bold statement means that that implies there's going to be more happening here than what you're expecting.
Yeah. So when I realized that it's a victim place, that I started trying to have lucid dreams where I tried to call the archetype into the lucid state. And I started really doing that right when I quit the job. It felt like almost a survival imperative that I have this dream. It felt like, I mean, I jumped off the cliff. I mean, this is very uncharacteristic of me to do something like that. Like, I have a kind of probably an unhealthy need for security like that. So this was a big ask for me to do this. And I was terrified the whole way through. Like, I kept praying that we were almost done. Are we done? I think we're getting there. Like, I have so many journal entries throughout that time of this cringy. It makes me cringe reading it, because every step of the way I'm like, I think I'm almost done with this part of the journey. I think we're almost here. Yeah, this synchronicity happening, I really think that that's telling me that I'm almost done. uh it's so bad, but I mean, being in that initiatory place, I mean, once I quit my job, that's like crossing the first threshold on the hero's journey. And so here I am in the thick of that underworld, and it feels intense, it feels scathing, and it feels terrifying. And so I'm like just itching and praying that it's over as soon as it can. Um, and every time that I have a lucid dream and I call the victim in, like, I'm just met by the most intense, like, primal fear I've ever felt in my life. Like like it's a fear that I've never felt. It's like it felt so bottomless. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it instantly made the dream completely unstable, and I would wake up. And I had many, many dreams like this. And eventually, probably like 3 months down the road, after having probably like 40 or so lucid dreams like that, because like my lucid dreams like really came to my service during that time. Like, they had shut off, but during this time, like, they came to my service probably to help me feel a little bit more comfortable that I had just jumped off the side of the cliff here. Uh, and I had all the time in the world. Like, I had nothing to do, so I was able to, apply all the best lucid dreaming techniques I could to become lucid. And I had all the time I needed to sleep. And so there was many factors that aided me in having a lot of lucid dreams during that time. But finally, I had one lucid dream where I called the victim in, and all of a sudden there's a person in the room, and he's kind of cowering in the corner, and he looks kind of homeless and run down, and uh, he's crying, and his energy is so ishy in the dream, just feels really ugh. uh and I have this strong like reaction to want to look away from him, or like to not approach him. And I work through it, and I approach him, and I go, "Come here, I just need to hug you." And I kind of force a hug upon him, and he's like pushing away from me, and I'm like trying to hold on tighter. I'm like just trying to hug away this awful energy coming off of him, because I just feel so bad and I don't know what to do about it. And he pushes back, and he just looks so offended and kind of hurt, and the dream rips apart, and I wake up, and I'm like, oh man, that was not how I wanted that to go. And I had to realize in that moment that, this is the archetype who embodies all of my pain. He embodies uh, the depths of all of my wounds that I carry and everything. I mean, it was truly humbling to have that realization, and to come in to approach the next time like in a much, much more graceful and truly compassionate way. Because I mean, how would you feel if you're just completely suffering there and somebody tried to walk up to you and, hug away all your pain? They didn't want to actually sit with your pain. They didn't want to understand your pain. They didn't want to hear your story. They didn't want none of that. They just want it done, I mean,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
obnoxious is that?
Yeah. Yep. And there's a side to the victim and the Grinch, which is the archetype of the miser. And the miser tries to give as little as possible to get what he wants out of a situation, whether it's it's a relationship, whether it's earning his salary at work, uh, whether it's getting the love of his of his spouse, of his children. There's a kind of a sense of entitlement to the miser, but that the miser is exactly the kind of shadowy um, behavior pattern where you would think that, oh yeah, there's this guy who's in this intense amount of pain, and I'll just give him a hug and everything will be better, And now can we talk about something else? Probably about him, But
Yeah.
so for me personally, the miser has been the archetype that I've dealt with, and I recognize when as soon as you said, "Oh yeah, I try to give him this hug," and he's, and I'm sitting there thinking, "Yeah, that's not going to be enough," you know. Because that allows you to skate on by, to kinda
Mhm.
skate through the hard part, and, you're being called to an initiatory experience, and it's not gonna allow you to get away with just, a pat on the back and, "Oh, everything's gonna be okay, kid."
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so then flash forward 2 months later, and I was able to have another experience where I was able to do the same thing, and, this time I approached it a lot different. And so I called him into the dream, and, he appears, and he sees me, and he's got tears in his eyes, and he just goes, "I can't do this with you right now." And he turns and he starts walking away. And I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And I'm like, I can't let him get away from me, but I can't force myself upon him again either. Like, what do I do? And because if I let him get away, then it's just going to reinforce the fact that I don't care enough to chase after him. Uh, and so I finally get wise and I say, "Look, I'm sorry." And he stops. He hasn't turned around to face me yet, but he just stops in his tracks. And I go, "It was really wrong of me to handle the situation the way I did last time. I'm really sorry." And he turns around and he has tears in his eyes and he's willing to stay. And I say, I love you. And he like shudders at it and like he can't accept it because like why how could he? Like he's he's the storehouse of all of my grief that I've never wanted to deal with. Uh, how could I say that I love him and have him accept
Yeah.
that as true? And I go, no, 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 no. Listen, and the words just start kind of coming out of me. These aren't anything that I thought about before. They just start kind of flowing right out of me, almost like I'm not even the one speaking it. Almost like the dream is like speaking through me for me to have this true understanding of the true nature of the victim. And I say to him, yeah, I love you because I mean you're the most beautiful part of who I am. And when I say that, he looks at me like he's puzzled and like, do you even believe what you're saying? And I like pause for a second and I'm like, wait, what am I saying? Do I believe that? And it just the words keep coming and I'm like, yeah, you're the most beautiful part of me because, you know, you are, that energy that encapsulates the true depth of human nature. You are the reservoir of our greatest ability to be, empathetic and compassionate and to really understand the plight of other people. I mean, what greater gift to this world do we have than you? I mean,
And he's also the part of you that's borne all the feelings that you didn't want to feel. I mean, he's been the pack mule.
yeah, but I mean, in that moment, it's so much more powerful that the victim is really, in its true nature, is our storehouse for compassion and empathy. And it's when we don't, when we're not willing to go into those feelings, and we're not willing to sit with our grief, and we're not willing to, do the hard work of, tending to our wounds, that energy gets kind of perverted and twisted. Because without our own stories of our own tribulations and pain, we can't really relate to other people, and we can't relate to other people's suffering. And if we couldn't do that, then we wouldn't care. you know so I mean, to understand how precious a gift the victim energy is, it was such a reframe for me. And the dream kind of continues, and way too long for me to go into here. But he's transformed. He's totally transformed in the rest of the dream. And I wake up feeling so much lighter. I feel like something has totally shifted. And like I had mentioned, the shadow work I'd been doing up to that point, it felt like I was just getting beaten up everywhere I turned. And with this reconciliation that happened, where I righted my relationship to that energy, uh, it totally changes so much for me. Where instead of bracing myself and getting ready for the impact of what life could do to me, I was leaning in. I was going all in. I was just felt like I was on this adventure of really trudging forward into uh, not only deeper into the shadow work that I was doing, and feeling capable of going into those spaces in a whole new way that before felt like, oh no, I'm willing to do the work, but I don't want to do the work. To being like, no, let's go there. Oh my God, I want to heal all of it. I want to go to the heart of it all. It was on at that point. And I don't think I would have survived the rest of this story had I not had that whole reframe happen and that whole reconciling moment with him. I mean, it gets the story as we proceed here gets really dicey because uh, I'm about to blow through all of my savings, and Erica is about to get pregnant with Luca, and here I am, no money, no job. My lady is pregnant. She's the one working, taking care of everything. It
Oh,
gets
yeah.
pretty dicey pretty quick for old Stevie boy.
Yeah, and people are looking at you sideways going, when are you gonna step up?
Yep.
Uh,
That's when this is when the initiation really goes into overdrive, because everything was all hunky dory up to this point. I still had a little bit of money. I was still paying all my bills. I was just hanging out. Um, and the thing that's really interesting about this part was right after I had that dream with the victim, uh, I had my very first dream with a king up here, and so it's almost like having faced that part of me so powerfully, uh, and taken such accountability for it, that the king was able to show up, and that I was beginning to allow that energy to kind of show up in my life. And it was almost like a new story of power was emerging, from being victim and being powerless. because with that directive coming into my power, like I had to face the victim energy, because that's your deep source of powerlessness. That's the seed of all of your disempowerment. And so that has to be wrangled with in some capacity. And so here the king starts showing up in this really cool progression that I'm probably not going to go into too much detail right now, but just to know that is happening. And with the king arising, there's also an anima process that initiates, that I'm going to have to tell that part of the story at another time too, because that's a whole story of its own. And yeah, so I mean, moving forward, Erica gets pregnant. I start losing all of my money, and so now we're at like May of 2016, and this is the first month that I have no money. And my parents helped me out a little bit, helped me float for a couple months, and they're starting to kind of be really suspicious about what I think I'm doing here, and are starting to get a little vocal about things. And she is not very happy with me about this, and for obvious reasons. We're about to bring a baby into the world. She's terrified, and what this is going to mean for us if I'm not working, and I don't have any money to pitch in. And there's all kinds of dilemmas surrounding that, and huge, the way I was brought up, this is not what a man does, and especially somebody who has a family that it needs to be a provider and taking care of them. Like, this is not how I was raised to operate. And so it's poking all of these soft spots within me of, I have no desire to be a deadbeat dad. I don't want to be this dude who's not showing up and helping out with my kid. But there's some feeling inside of me that is constantly saying, we have to do this. And there's no way that I can look away from it, because it feels like if I abort this mission, it feels not like it's life or death, but it feels like there will be a really deep soul loss that happens if I fail to show up for myself right now. That there is a process that's happening, and if I can see it through, then there's this big beautiful thing on the other side of this. And if I fail myself in it, then I feel like I'm going to become the shell of a man that I'm going to become a shell of a man. And I can't really explain fully. I mean, part of it is that I had an experience with the anima. Like I said, the anima process was taking off, and I had a lucid dream where I fully met her. And I feel like it imprinted such an experience upon me of coming into such deep contact with that part of me, which is kind of like the soul of a man. And, it changed me, and it made me, want to fight for her. And unlike I had ever done in my whole life, the reason why there's such a big victim issue within me is because I never, ever showed up for myself. And I never set boundaries, and I never knew how to stand up for myself. And I never knew how to truly honor that deep, beautiful part of who I am. And so this part of this initiation, and why it looks like this, is because I have to prove, this is my big test. Can you, beyond any reasonable doubt, prove that you're willing to go to such an extreme to show up for yourself? If you feel something true inside of you, like this feeling that's telling me you have to keep walking this path, that's the reason why it feels like there would be a soul loss. Because if I renege on this now, then that's me again for the 50 millionth time saying that somebody else's ideas of what I should be doing are more important than what I feel inside of me. And it's so brutal, because obviously I want to be providing for my woman. I want to create a space for my child to come into this world where we're not struggling. There's no part of me that wants that. But I feel so sure about what is happening. And it's There's no way to explain it. There's no way to explain it that makes it sound good, right? Like, this sounds dumb, like, to almost everybody. It even sounds dumb to me, like, thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, to think that, to think that this carried on for almost a whole nother year even. Like, that big death experience happens in March of 2017, and here we are in, like, May of 2016. So, like, there's a long path ahead yet. And so, I mean, the summer of 2016, actually, let me back up 2 paces. In February of 2016, right after the victim dream happened, I had a dream that I was viewing Minneapolis, where I live, seeing the skyline, and set behind the skyline is none other than Mount Crumpit.
Oh.
It looked just like the view from Whoville. It was unbelievable. Just seeing this towering, crooked, curved mountain set behind the city was just unbelievable. And I was trying to get a group of guys to go climb it with me, and nobody wanted to do it. They thought I was ridiculous for wanting to do it. And a few images that flashed in my head about what the climb would actually look like. It was super steep. It was super dicey, and there was a pretty good chance you weren't going to make it, that you would die. But like I said, with the advent of the victim thing, in that dream, I was like, oh man, I want this adventure. But I kept referring, I wouldn't call it Mount Crumpit. I kept calling it Mount Kilimanjaro. And the dream totally used a play on words with Killaman.
I heard it.
Yeah. And there was understood to be like a temple at the top of Mount Crumpit. And so there was that dream. Super cool dream. I just love that dream just for the fact that Mount Crumpit makes an appearance. And so flash forward like 6 months, it's like August, right around the new moon in Leo, which is my moon sign is in Leo. And so that summer, with all of the crazy that was happening, it seemed like my dreams were kind of prodding me to kind of try to figure out, what is your deepest fear? Because I was terrified. Like, I felt like I was losing everyone and everything. And so I meditated on the Leo new moon, it being my moon sign. I really wanted to have a powerful experience and try to see if I could really touch base with what that is. And through the advent of the visualization I was doing, it was basically just like this character was in the visualization, and he was just messing with me so hard. And I kept trying to like be a loving presence and try to like have him come around, and we could squash like the dissonance that was happening between the two of us. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't. And here we are like 4 years deep in shadow work, and one of the most painful things throughout my shadow work was every time I would look in the mirror, I would try to say, I love you, Steve. And every time I would say it, like this pinch would happen in my gut, like I didn't believe it. And so in this visualization, I'm trying to get this guy to just, hug it out with me and to, squash the beef of what was happening. And he just won't go. And he's almost like jeering me and like taunting me. And finally, I just break in the visualization and I cry out, why will I never be worthy, or why can I never be worthy of my own love? And I realized in that moment that my greatest fear is that I fear I'll never be worthy of my own love. And that is the truth of the victim, that is the great truth within me of the victim, that I have tailored myself so fully to everybody else in my life that I've forgotten about myself, and that I fear that I would never be worthy of my own love. And it's so brutal, and I cried so hard, and it just like broke me in such a beautiful way. And it just like, it was just unbelievable to like tap into that and to realize that. And Yeah, man, that's it's brutal. And so a couple days after that, I had another Grinch dream where I was walking into a movie theater, and on the outside of the movie theater, there was a few movie posters, and the only one that I can remember was an Exorcist poster. And I remember kind of smiling about that. And especially after I woke up, I'm like, yeah, we just discovered this deep truth. Like, yeah, there's some definite exorcism that has to happen.
Uh-huh.
And so I walk in the movie theater, and for me, movie theaters are always like a symbol that are showing me, you know, what is the story that's playing out in my life, kind of like larger than life. Like, what is the narrative that's happening? And so I walk into the lobby, and just littered all throughout the lobby is all this Grinch paraphernalia, and it's just decked out in anticipation for the release of this new Grinch movie. And I'm just like, so like, there's just such a beautiful feeling in that. And I'm like marveling, just going like, oh my God, this looks amazing. And I wake up, and, you know, to me, you know, this symbolizes that this story is this Grinch story is about to play out in a really powerful way. And I think this is at the point when I realized that this mythic story really is like actually playing out in my life right now. And that hopefully that means that the Grinch's big change of heart is on its way, right? And that discovering this truth, you know, I now have this truth that I can work with and hopefully, you know, dismantle. And that by dismantling this truth and proving to that space within me that it's worthy of my love and that I am worthy of my love, you know, will bring about, you know, a change of heart that results in my heart growing 3 sizes, right? Um, and then like a week or two later, I have another dream where I'm at the top of a mountain and I'm with a friend of mine who often symbolizes the victim archetype, and we're singing the Queen song, "We Are the Champions." And to me, that was like reaching the top of the mountain, having digested that truth for a week or two, and realizing that we made it, that we made it to the top of that mountain, and we discovered the truth that could save us. And I mean, how beautiful is that? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, going forward from there, like my son is born, still no job, still no money. I get like 2 months of like, you know, guilt-free uh, time with my kid. Nobody's hounding me. Everybody's just happy that he's here. And, you know, right before Christmas, so he's born in October. Right before Christmas, my family came out and wanted to spend Christmas with their new grandson. And that's when the pressure really started to come on, and everybody's like giving me a lot of shit. And they're not being super harsh about it. You know, it's Christmas time. But, you know, they're starting to really get vocal about things. And, you know, they haven't really been talking to me the whole last like 4 or 5 months. I mean, they put up with me, but it's not like they're reaching out and you know, really taking any stock in what's going on. And so right after Christmas, like things get really crazy, and my sister-in-law, like my brother's wife, actually starts weaseling into Erica's head that she should give me an ultimatum. And I'm like, who are these people? Like, you guys are starting to turn on me? Like, what the hell is this all about? Um, and so she does. She tells me that if I don't have rent money by the end of January for the start of February, that she's not paying for it. And so I panic. And I mean, luckily Christmas was in. I got a little bit of money from some people that knew that I was struggling. My birthday is at the end of January. I got a little bit of money for that too. Was able to actually come up with the money that I needed for my rent, and survived that awful month of worrying that I was going to be homeless, man. I don't know anybody else in Minnesota, you know. All my family's out of state. And so yeah, man, things are getting really rough, and I had a lot of really intense dreams during that month. And one of them was I had the Excalibur, so this is like a king dream, and I had to go to hell to face off with the devil. And the sword, the Excalibur, it was almost like the ring in Lord of the Rings. Like it carried dark energy. It had the power to be good, but it was almost like I had to go to hell with that weapon that at the moment was full of, dark magic, and prove that I could face the devil and not be turned by it. And so the way that this like mythic storyline played out, it was totally like a mythic story of The Hobbit, of Frodo going to the heart of Mordor and having to prove that he's willing to. I mean, that story is totally perfect for this story too. I mean, having to walk into the heart of your deepest fears and to be almost undone by them, and have to be willing to give away all your power, because that's part of this story. Like, part of me coming into my power was proving that I was capable of relinquishing all of my power, like to let all my money go, to let my job go, to let my family go, essentially, because they all pretty quick here, they write me off, and I don't talk to my dad for like 4 months. And I have to be willing to let go of my woman and my child. And what the fuck, dude? Like that. This is where the devil part comes in, because now I'm starting to get bitter, because I'm starting to think that maybe it is going to have to go that far. Like they want it to go that far. Like whoever they is, like whatever intelligence is leading this initiation for me. I'm starting to realize that unless something really switches here really fast, like that's exactly where we're going. And what the hell? Like that is not what I signed up for. You're really gonna totally self-destruct my entire life. You're gonna take away the most beautiful thing that I have ever experienced in my child. Like I have to prove that I'm willing to let that go. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, man, you're like Abraham. You got to go take your child and sacrifice him on the altar.
Just unbelievable. And I mean, I'm like starting to like shake my fist at God. Like this is bullshit. Like this is cruel. This is cruel and unnecessary. Like in my mind, it was completely unnecessary. But at the same time, like every time that I would get to that point, like a dream would come to my aid that would like assure me, like, no, please just hang on a little bit longer. Like, if you can do this, like you have no idea what this is going to do for you. And if you don't, at this point, man, your life's already fucked. If you just back off at this point, you're going to be totally messed up, man. Like, and like the thing about it is, like any true initiation, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Like there's no guarantee that you survive the death that's coming to you. And that's where I'm at right now. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. I'm praying to you right now, God, that if I allow you to completely destroy my life right now, that you are in turn going to build me back, right? I'm putting a lot of faith in the fact that is going to happen. A lot of dumb, blind faith. And so I'm like, man, it feels like facing off with the devil. I mean, you brought up the story Job, and I remember when I was going through this, that you told me that story at the time. I mean, all you out there, Jason is one of the only people that stood by my side through this entire thing. And I'm pretty sure that the only reason why I stayed the course a couple of times was because of this guy.
Oh man.
Yeah, like, seriously,
I knew.
dude.
I felt that off of you. I knew you were in a place where it was you're in the underworld, and
man.
if you lose your rope at that point, then where are you? You're stuck in the underworld, and you don't have a way out. So yeah, man, I remember saying some prayers for you, just like, God, I hope you get through this, because you are,
Yeah.
you're right there. The turning point is coming. You're right there, but nobody else can tell you when you're in that spot what to do, because I mean, look at what you're facing. Conventional wisdom said that what you were doing was just completely foolhardy,
Yeah.
but you have something inside of you coming through your dreams saying, this is where you're supposed to be, and this is the process that you're in. And so you have to trust it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, I was glad to be part of that. I'm glad I was there for you, and
Yeah. Me too,
could
man.
play that role for you. Jesus. I didn't know that, though. I mean, at the time I had no idea. I would just know that we would get on the phone and you'd tell me what was going on, and then you tell me about the dreams you were having, and I'm just going, well, what I see in the dreams is that this is leading you to a good place. So
Yeah.
I'm going to trust that, and in the meantime, you know, um, good luck with the rent money, brother.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, so
Uh,
just moving forward beyond January of 2017, uh yeah, me and my dad have a big falling out, and that's not good, man. That was brutal. And right at the time, right around it was been right around Erica's birthday, but the Leo full moon was, I think, on her birthday or like the day before that year, because her birthday is like February 9th. And so that day, I mean, I had a dream, a king dream. I had shared this one in the Leah episode, but I'll share it again real quick. I was standing outside the court of the king, and I was about to go in, and all of a sudden, this man walks in front of me carrying a white cross on his shoulder, like Jesus, like it's a big cross, and he's dragging it, and he drags it into the court of the king. And the dream ends just as I'm about to walk through the door behind him, and it's kind of like, here we are. I always hate when dreams do that, but now I appreciate it because I realize, like, when dreams do that, where it wakes you up just as like the moment you're hoping to have in the dream is supposed to happen, and it's like it's ushering you into the world that this is where you're at, like this is the threshold that you're at. And so for me to see the cross go into the chamber of the king, felt like this is my death and rebirth is definitely right. It's top of the menu right now. And like I knew that because I almost didn't survive January, right? Like
yeah.
there's a definitely clear vantage point of when this is ending for me, because it's coming real quick, because I got nothing going for me. And if Erica decides at any moment that she's just done with me, then she's just done with me. And so the ultimatum was on the table again for the end of February. And so I had that dream. And then the very next day, on the full moon in Leo, which I think was also an eclipse. So this is like my moon sign, eclipse on my moon sign. This is, I mean, it's so multi layered and faceted how hardcore this time period is for me. Um, I have a dream where I actually meet the Grinch, like a full on meeting of him. So the dream takes place, I'm in a city hall, and there's all kinds of like Spider-Man paraphernalia in City Hall. And I'm looking at it in amazement, like, oh my God, like, why would they have all this in here? And Spider-Man is like one of my favorite superheroes, and he makes often makes appearances in my dreams as far as like the warrior archetype is concerned. And so, I mean, I don't think I have to explain that I need warrior energy at this moment, hardcore, to face this. And to have it be in City Hall felt like drawing it from the center of the city, or like from the authority of that central place within me. And I walk out into this hallway, and there's all kinds of people passing me, and there's like everyone has like a shirt on it that has the Grinch, or a hat, or something that has the Grinch on it. And all of a sudden, this person comes walking right up to me who looks like it's just a costume, but as he gets closer, I realize it's like a legit Grinch. Like, it's not just a mask or anything. Like, it has facial expression, and I realize it is him, and it's not the big hearted Grinch. It's the dude who's here in town ready to take Christmas. So he has this very unnerving kind of like slippery energy to him. That was like really powerful, and I woke up like, okay, like yeah, shit's about to hit the fan, man. To think that I actually meet him here, in this moment when I know that we're almost at the end here. Almost everything has been taken from me. I mean, like we saw with the Leo new moon back 6 months prior, where I had the big truth realization. Here we are 6 months later at the Leo full moon, having the Grinch show up, like right on cue. Like the new moon in Leo to the full moon. It's like a full cycle of that lunar cycle. And here we are at this big moment where I have the possibility of maybe, having this big shift or change of heart or this big death moment. And so, yeah, a couple of weeks go by and I have just a slew of dreams, just really incredible dreams that are both at once like recognizing the true gravity of what's happening here and at the same time offering me really helpful, sense of encouragement to see it through. And one of them that I had that really saw me through was that I was on a canoe and I was going down these atrocious rapids, and it was understood that these were the worst rapids of this river. And I was almost through them. Like I understood that I was almost through them, and if I could push through just beyond this part, it was understood. And the dream gave me this image of me just kind of coasting from there, and it was and I understood that that was going to be my favorite part of the whole river. And, looking back on that now, almost 5 years later, I mean, the path that followed that really wasn't as peaceful as it made it seem. But it definitely has been my favorite part of this whole journey. I mean, my music came back online and I've been rebuilding my life in such a truer way that, I mean, it is my favorite part. But so I had that dream, and outside of kind of what I was just talking about, where like part of this journey and part of this test, this initiation for me was, am I willing to relinquish my power? Like, do I have enough? Can I stand in power while it's being stripped away? Can I still love myself in the face of it? And it's almost like by being stripped of my power, I actually hold power. Because who the hell is willing to do what the fuck I just did? Oh God. I don't know if I'm
and
stupid
that's what
or brave.
happened. That's what happened to Job too.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, he ends up with more than what he gave up, but he had to give up everything first before he got back there. And that's why, Carl Jung's book about Job delves into that and the psychological part of it, about the kind of stripping away all the pretense and the losing of something essential about yourself so that something else can take its place. And in fact, in his own life, when he went into the underworld and did the sort of visionary journey that you're talking about, guess what he was told? He was told that also that something had to die.
Wow.
And for him, and in his dream, he waits for this hunter, kind of Nordic from the wild, crazy hunter, and he has to kill it with a sniper rifle. And he has this tremendous sense of loss because he had to kill this thing that was, virile and strong and, plowing its way forward in the world. And what that was in the end is it was his ego. The ego in him as a doctor and prominent member of the community and all that. And that's what had to die for him to then have a rebirth as the second half of his life, where he was, the mystic explorer of the inner world and the healer, and made him so much more effective in the way that he could relate to people, no longer as doctor to patient, but as person to person, and bringing that part of him that almost like there was a victim side to him too, that he was able to bring into the consulting room, into the office with his patients and relate to them in a way that he couldn't before. So, wow, man, you you have a lot more in common with him than you might know. And apparently with Job.
Oh, that's funny, man. Wow. Yeah, man, that's crazy. I've never heard any of that. That's really cool. Yeah, and so I guess before I forget this point was that so relinquishing my power, it was almost like the true king, was willing to do that. And the tyrant is the energy that would come up that would be like, no, I have to hold on to this.
The Grinch. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Grinch
Yeah.
is a tyrant.
He probably does fill into that too. Yeah, for sure. And where was I going with that? And so like the story of like Prometheus also came up in a few different dreams of like wanting to steal the fire for himself. And what happens when you do that, like God change you to a rock and lets an eagle eat out your liver every day. And so I had a few dreams that were like that, where it showed like what would happen if I decided to go against this process that was happening. And one of them that happened just before the end there was there was two different scenes that happened within the dream. The first scene shows me like, kind of what I believe the dream wanted me to act in accordance with, and the second half kind of showed me pretty soberly kind of what happens if I go against it. And so the first part of the dream is there's a war that's about to happen. There's a big face off that's about to happen, and I'm there with my father. He's like a general in this war, and in that capacity, I at the time I kind of looked at him as like a symbol of like the Father God. And right before the battle begins, I say a few prayers out loud, and one of them was to the spirit of the bear, that I would have the bravery and the courage to face this, and another one was to the spirit of the deer, that I would have the gentleness and the grace to do it in that way, in that manner, where I was strong enough to withstand it, but at the same time gentle enough to understand, to be gentle with myself, but also with the people in my life who have no idea why I'm doing this to myself, and to not, be bitter and hateful towards them, since for not being able to see me in the equation, and realize that I'm like really going through something right now that I really need your support in, because I'm just like, this is a lot for me to handle all on my own, and I feel like I'm all on my own in it. And so there's that scene, and it's almost like I wish I would have reviewed this a little better, but we were planning on just standing our ground, and if the enemy advanced, we would just stand our ground, and there was like a real strength in that. Then the dream scene shifts, and it shows what happens if I decide to deviate from that, and I'm shown infiltrating this base of the enemy, and I'm just killing everybody. I'm just deciding how I'm gonna take care of the situation, and I'm just shooting everybody that I see, and I get all the way to the center of this building, and there's this woman who's naked, which I believe to be the anima, and she has eyes that are tattooed all over her body. And I take her for myself. I throw her over my shoulder, and I have thoughts of taking her to some back room and just having my way with her. And I woke up from that dream and was like, oh my God, that felt so gross, dude. it just felt so like ungrounded and gross, like, and all the eyes felt like it was like, the all seeing eyes of my soul. Like, how
Yep.
are you going to
Yep.
operate? Are you just going to try to take this for yourself? Are you going to try like this beauty within you? Or are you just going to try to like think that you know better, and you're going to try to take it for yourself and run with it? And, uh, you know, pretty much like, I don't know, like I don't really know exactly how to put it in words right now, but I mean, I think you kind of see the difference in the stances. So you can either, you know, take the boon for yourself and, ravage it and be obnoxious, or you could stand your ground and you could face the shattering that's about to happen, and you could do it with grace.
Boy, that's like Jesus in the desert when he's tempted.
Mm,
He's shown all the that he could have the world. He'd become a lion. He'd overcome all those things, and he was at his moment of transformation. And he had to decide what he wanted to be. And he decided he would be the lamb.
wow.
But there was the potential at that point. I mean, the devil says, "Worship me, and you can be the most powerful person alive."
Hmm.
Are you going to serve? Which agenda are you going to serve?
Right.
And he made that choice in that moment. But you also had that same choice, because once you have access to these places within you, you have access to true power.
Hmm.
And you if you want to use that for your own agenda, you want to be a conqueror, then you can be. you know
Yeah, that's perfect way to look at that. Um, you know, having my own agenda and doing what I want, and exerting power over, the deep feminine beauty within me, instead of holding my ground and standing in power and facing, man, that's like so crazy. So the very final dream that I had right before the big shattering happened was one that showed me like a very embodied look at that deep truth that I stumbled upon with the victim. And so I had a dream that I was running from some kind of dream character, and I became lucid in that moment. And I felt so small, like running in fear like that. And I'm like, no, I gotta face this. And nobody was there when I became lucid all of a sudden. And I stood before a doorway and I said, show me what I fear the most. And I opened the door, and before me was a stage. And I walk out onto the stage, and there's these big bright lights on me, and there's this really beautiful little auditorium out before me. And I just kind of chuckle, like, yeah, man, stepping into me being the musician that I know in my heart I could be. And, really owning that is a big part of what this has all been about. And so then I turn from there, and there's this little area like off stage, and there's this big mirror, and I just like kind of gravitate right to the mirror, and I say to the mirror again, uh, show me what I fear the most. And the image of me in the mirror warbles, and all of a sudden it shows me this truly tortured part of myself, and it shows me like the true depth of the victim. And the victim has a tattoo right under his eye that is a music note, and he's just crying the most gut-wrenching cry I've ever like visibly seen anybody cry. It was just like just soul agony. It was just unbelievable, how completely tortured that looked. And man, I like woke up from that dream and was just like, I have to see this through, because if that's really what is going on inside of me, if that is a true depiction of what that energy feels like inside of my soul, like, and I know it, I know it's true. And to see it like that was just like, oh my God, I don't care what happens at this point. Nobody, I'm not going to be able to I'm not really functioning at my truest potential and really being able to show up for people if this is really an experience that's happening within me. So I'm like, I'm already so deep in this. I can't back off, even if it means that I lose everything. And yeah, within, I mean, a couple days later is when Erica finally just can't take it anymore. She's just beyond herself. Luca's been alive for, let's see, that's beginning of March. So that's probably going on 6, almost 7 months. He's been alive and I still haven't gotten a job. She's done, dude. She had to go back after 3 months, and here old Steve is still hanging out on the couch. Like, she went all the way through her pregnancy carrying my ass, and then is still carrying me 6 months into the baby being born. Like, oh man, just unbelievable. And so she's just done. She's just completely done, and her heart breaks in a way that I've never seen anybody's heart break. And I just, something just shatters inside of me in that moment. And she, yeah, like, I think all of my naivety up to that point, all of my hope that it wouldn't have to come to this very moment, just shattered, man. And my whole world just came crumbling down, and there was no part of me that ever wanted to hurt her like that. And oh man, I man, as much of a beautiful moment as that should have been, that I proved to myself in that moment. I left the house that day and wasn't sure if I was going to be let back in, and I wrestled with some of the deepest feelings of guilt and regret, and just pain of just feeling like I just let go of the most beautiful thing that I've ever had. And why would I do that, right? Like, and so in some ways, like, in that moment, like, I wrestled with those feelings all day long, and I by the end of the night, I did come to a place where I was like, okay, Steve, well, we've made it this far, and you know it still feels like everything is going to be okay, even though it's not. I have faith that whatever just destroyed us is going to put us back together, and we can fix this. I pray to God that I can get her back. And like, this is the moment where I don't know if I'm going to survive this yet. And I don't know if I just was completely naive in such a way that I just totally destroyed my life for no good reason. And what kind of bullshit climb is this going to be if she doesn't take me back? Like, how am I going to bounce back from this? And if she doesn't take me back, if nothing beautiful comes from this, like, what the hell did I just do to myself? And the gravity of the loss was so deep. Like, it broke, like I said, like, it broke something so perfectly within me that I don't even really have words for it yet. I still don't even really understand in that moment truly the true depth of what was truly lost there in the moment. I mean, I can surmise a few things, but I mean, the true gravity of it is still, I mean, it still weighs so, it still has a mark on my heart. And
Something had to die.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And she did end up taking me back. We did. I had just an obnoxious windfall of grace come through that next day, that I got a job. Like, it wasn't anything fancy, and it was at the building that we lived in. And so it was only going to be money that went to my rent, but it was enough for me to compromise with her and to show her that, this was never my intention, and that I want to prove to you that I'm willing to do what I have to do to make things right with you. And So yeah, it still wasn't like for another month or two before I actually got a legit like a money paying job, and so things were real rocky. And I still can't even believe that she took me back. Like it's such a blessing, and it's been such a hard road, like regaining her trust and finding my way back to her, and for her to find her way back to me. It's been such a brutal road of rebuilding our relationship, not only my life but to rebuild our relationship. And I think one of the big things that I realized in that moment was I was still able to sing the song of praise when the Grinch stole everything from me. But in that moment, I realized that the true song of praise is the song of belonging. And while I finally, for the very first time in my life, captured a sense of true belonging with myself, where I proved to myself beyond the most obnoxious reasons of doubt that I was willing to lay everything on the line to prove to myself that I could love myself and that I could honor myself for the first time ever in the most obnoxious way. That was beautiful and so rewarding in itself, like that. But at the same time, I lost everybody in my life to it. And so there was like this incredibly bittersweet experience of realizing that song of praise, not that it means nothing, singing it by yourself, but that true belonging, requires you to be in relationship with other people. And while I needed this to happen in the way that it did to prove my loyalty to myself, like it made me fully aware in that moment that I'm not only beholden to myself, I'm beholden to everybody in my life that offers me love and that shows me love and that truly cares for me. And I mean, what a brutal gift that was. And so yeah, I mean that's that part of the story. I mean, the road to rebuilding things, I mean, the lover energy came online, and the boon of this whole initiation was that my dream started inspiring music, for me at that point, and has totally helped me rebuild my life in a much truer way, where I'm fully honoring my gifts, and at least trying to the best that I can. And because up to that point, I wasn't really doing that. I was sitting back on my life, and I wasn't truly in my power. I was floundering, and I was scared, truly daunted of the path of the calling that I felt in my heart. And I really want to believe that the reason why I've sat back on answering the call that I've felt so fully is the fact that I knew in some way that to do that, honestly, I would have to walk this path, that this would have had to happen for me to do that. And so the gift of, going that far was that my dreams really came to my aid to help me, rebuild my life in that way of, honoring the true beauty inside of me.
That last dream showed you the two fears. One, step out on stage, and
Mm-hmm.
two, show the world that part of you that had just been
Yeah.
just devastated. But it's what comes through in your music, and I think the listeners are gonna have to hear it because, man, I just
Yeah.
absorbed your new album, and I mean, just throughout the whole thing, it's real. I mean,
Yeah.
like the way that you give words to everything that you experienced and felt, to what you went through, that was the gift that then, because you can hear it. You're drawing from a place within you that is as authentic as it gets, real experience. And that's the gift that you're able to give through your music now. It's not just in the words, but in the melodies and the piano, and I mean, it's all there. And to
Yeah.
me, man, that's, I can tell the difference. I've heard enough,
Hmm.
music in my life now, and made enough music that I know the difference between, you know, um, writing a jingle, kind of using your music theory to put together something, and writing something that comes from the heart. And the place where that came from was the guy that when you looked in the mirror and you saw that guy. It's almost like all those, not maybe not all of them, but there are so many of those songs that what it seems like to me is just that you're looking in that mirror, you're seeing that guy, and you're writing his story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Big time, man. Yeah. I'm glad I thought about this because, so if we bring it back to the directive, I mean, I had to kill something and create something beautiful in its place. And so
Yeah.
the advent of the music coming online after like 6 years or almost 7 years worth of like complete writer's block and almost losing sight of my music, uh, it came back online in such a beautiful way that I can't even express my true gratitude for it because it's changed everything for me. And it's just been unbelievable to have my dreams come to my aid like that, to create this new beautiful experience within my life. And when the music came back online, I realized that music for me is such a source of my power. It's what makes me feel true and authentic and fully in alignment with who I am. And like for me, the story of power is not like power. Like it's not that. It's knowing myself. It's honoring my truth. It's it's knowing deeply within me that I'm worthy of my own love. It's worth, man. It's power to me is the story of worth, and that's also the story of the Grinch. I mean, that's so I have the dream of going to the top of Mount Crumpet and discovering that truth. That's what he does. I mean, he goes to the top of Mount Crumpet with all the gifts, thinks, ha ha ha, and has this,
Yeah, he just stole all the gifts from the townspeople in Whoville, and he's like,
yeah.
"Ah,
So, I mean, him like we scaled to the top of this mountain and we discovered the truth that took us out of our victimhood. And that changed everything. It turns him from victim into lover of life. It takes him from being angry and mad and feeling wounded and hurt and broken by life. And it transforms him into the lover. It turns him into this beautiful, giving soul that has a heart that grows 3 sizes and wants nothing more than to serve and to share beauty with the town and to remember himself to the town and to be welcomed into that true belonging again. And that is absolutely the story that I've been walking, and it's unbelievable to see the parallels there. And it just means so much to me that story has come alive to me so powerfully and so beautifully. And at the end of 2017, which is when this big death happens, the third Grinch movie was released in real life. They made that new one with Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch, and there's a scene at the end of that movie where the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who have their little face-off in the house where he's trying to take her Christmas tree, and she invites him to come to the song that they were going to sing the next day, and she says to him something along the lines of, yeah, you just close your eyes and you sing that song and all of your pain just floats away. And that's like, man, that like line like hit me so hard watching that movie, because that's kind of like the path that has happened. I mean, like, rediscovering my music has, I mean, the dreams are, it's not just songs they're giving me to write. It's like dream work. Like, these are deep prodding songs that are helping me move into that space now that death has happened. And part of the rebuilding is moving into those spaces and to giving voice to them and to validating them and honoring that true pain that's in there. And yeah, I mean, closing my eyes and feeling that lover energy and that victim energy work together to sing that song of praise has just been such a wild, beautiful gift. And if I retell this story again from the anima side of things, like, that's the lover energy in relation to the anima has been such a part of this journey since then. And the dance of being the Grinch that I am, it's been a beautiful ride with her, to have her help teach me how to access that lover energy. And man, it's been so cool. So cool.
So it's like it was hidden inside the victim and the Grinch, that there was like a flipping to another side of it that opens up to this thing that's energetic and beautiful and full of love.
Yeah.
And that's what's really hiding behind
'cause
it. And when you're in this place of yourself where you feel like a victim, it's really what it's doing is it's maybe, you're hiding behind that because maybe it's hard to admit the truth or to live the truth on the other side of it, which is that you really can love yourself. You really can give the best of yourself. And that can,
Yeah, because I mean, the victim wound in me is the higher octave of that is the lover wound. It's like the victim in me feels, that truth, that horrible truth is also the same wound that the lover carries, because it's all about feeling worthy of your own love. And man, how amazing to see that the Grinch himself is the lover victim, and he has his change of heart, and he just blasts that door wide open into full lover energy. That's my story, man. It's so crazy. Like, that is my story. It's all tied into belonging and to knowing your own worth and feeling belonging within yourself and being able to bring that to your community and serving others and giving and being joyous and singing. Like, the fact that singing is such a central part to that story is also just such a wild and beautiful thing to me. And the final thing I'll say about all of this is that for me, looking at the directive, there's so many different ways that you could look into what needs to be killed and what beauty needs to be created in its place. But I think like a year ago, I discovered that essentially in both my waking life and my dreaming life, like, I still don't feel like uh, the directive has been answered in my dreaming life. I still feel like there's some kind of symbolic death experience that still is going to happen in a lucid dream of some sort. I don't know what that would look like, but that's my intuition about it, and that hasn't happened yet. I feel like the releasing of this album right now is the echo of that beautiful thing that I was going to create in its place. And not that this album is it, right? It's just the process that this album has opened within
Yeah.
me, that this is the beauty that has been created in this place. And so that victim wound, that Victor lover wound of I fear that I'll never be worthy of my own love, that's the thing that needs to be killed in both my waking life and in my dreaming life. And if I can do that, then that brings me square back into my power, that because it brings me square back into my heart, where I know now that I can love myself beyond any measure of a doubt, and that no matter what happens in my life, I got me, you know. And it's just like it's so beautiful to know that there's so many different ways that you can look into what needed to be killed. But at the core of it all, it's that truth in both states of my life that needed to die and that needed me to kill it, not transform it, not change it. I need to kill it. That thing needs to die at my hand. And that's why I had to go through all of this. I had to be the one that kept stepping forward on that path. I had to be the one that kept doing the work to bring a complete death to this awful truth that has ravaged my life, my whole life through. And man, I oh man, Jesus.
Brother, that's a hell of a story. And, I'm just thinking of all the people out there who were going, I thought it was going to be a Christmas story, but, we gave you one. And I hope that they're, that they'll know that this is a time for them, no matter what they've lost between them and the people that they know and love, no matter what maybe has come between them, that this is the time to sing that song together and to make the amends, to drop any of that ego nonsense that's coming between them and the ability to share love with people that they should be able to share it with, and just sing that song together, to let your heart out and to honor their story. There might be someone out there who needs to be heard, and you have the ears to do it. You don't have to be a wise man or a wise woman. You don't have to have the perfect thing to say at the perfect time that'll make everything right. Sometimes it's just allowing someone to speak their truth, and that helps them to have their healing. That gives them the space between them and the thing that has been eating them, the thing that is keeping them maybe as a victim. So I would hope that if there's one thing that people can take away from this, maybe their experience is not like yours. They don't have the same depth of their dreams. They don't go through the same trials. But they might be looking for something for themselves that brings them into that same space of of um, of gifting, because they're giving of themselves in a way that's a gift, and that can be what they, just to hear, to be the ears that someone else can unload for, you know, to unload to them so that they don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. So, brother, man, thank you for sharing that story with us. And I would ask our listeners, man, if you've got, if there's a story that attracts you to it, that has a resonance with you, and you want to dream about it, remember how Steve started this. It started as an active dream. It started as a visionary journey, and he asked to see a character, and the Grinch came to him in that vision. And then that seemed to kick off this whole thing. I mean, if you remember 2 hours ago, that's how we started this conversation. You were, telling us about the shamanic journey that you did. And
Yeah, man.
this is something that I've been learning too, is sometimes I don't get the responses from my dreams that I want, but I can prompt them by doing the inner active imagination work, doing the kind of shamanic visionary work. Sometimes it's just closing the eyes and having a directive in mind, going inside myself, turning that focus inside, and then let the mind's eye go into a story. And that can be the start of it, because you're feeding into that part of the dreaming mind is always there and observing. It's even when you're awake, it's still there and it's observing. And if you give it some raw material to work with, then, you know, then it can run with it from there. And maybe it'll start to bring a theme into your dreams to give you a narrative and a story that will help you to transform your life too. So, brother, I think I know I know the song we got to go out on. You know what song I'm thinking of, right? Yeah.
Fahu Forest.
So, listeners, thank you for honoring us by sticking with us through to hear Steve all the way through to telling of his story.
Welcome, true belonging, while we stand, heart to heart, and hand in hand. Well, this concludes another episode of the Dreams That Shape Us podcast, and I want to personally thank you for listening to my story. This really is the biggest story of my life, and there's still so much of it to tell. And so there will certainly be a part 2 to this at some point, especially in relation to the lover energy and the true story of the return journey from that death. So stay tuned for that. My album is finished. My new album is finished. I'm so excited about it, and I want to give you all a sneak preview of it. So if you've been listening this far, here you go. In the show notes, you will find a link to listen to my new album. It's not on any of the major streaming platforms yet, because I'm still waiting for the artwork to be done for it. But my gift to you, my Christmas Grinch gift to you, is the ability to hear it now. And like Jason said, you'll hear that whole album through that deep space within me that is crying out. And it was such a healing album to work on, and the music is so beautiful, in my opinion. And I really hope that it touches you, and that it opens you, and that it heals you in some sweet and beautiful way. So take a look in the show notes right now, if you have the time. Check it out, bookmark it. And I'll also leave a link to a song from my previous album that was entitled Inner Victim, which is the song that Jason refers to it at one point, where he says, I finally looked in the mirror and was really able to sincerely, own up to that part of me and, make a deep commitment to it at that point. And so that song is super fresh. That was the summer of 2017, only 6 months after I had gone through this whole experience. So that song has got some serious heat and power to it. So I'll leave a link to that song. And yeah, I really appreciate you all being here. And I hope you all have an incredible holiday season, and look forward to season 2 of the Dreams That Shape Us podcast. We have some really cool stories on the way. So 2022 is going to be an amazing year for us. I just can feel it. And so much of that is due to you all listening and caring and showing up. The two of us appreciate it more than any words I can say right now. So thank you so deeply for all of your support this last year. It's literally just a few days past a full year of us being live with this podcast. So on behalf of Jason, the board, and myself, the two of us would love to just say thank you, truly and deeply. Thank you. And as always, you can find out more from Jason by going to jmdeboard.com. That's jmdebord.com for all of his offerings and classes and books and all of the beauty that he has to offer this world. Because there's so much. There's just so much. And if you are on Instagram, I would love it if you would find us. I just started a page about a month ago and would love to have you on there. I'm going to be giving all kinds of sneak previews, trailers for upcoming episodes, behind the scenes looks at what we're doing. It's going to be really cool. So why don't you join us? Go on Instagram. We are at Dreams That Shape Us. So I look forward to connecting with you. Again, happy holidays from our hearts to yours. Thank you.